5, 4,
3, 2, 1. Okay. And we... We're live. We're live.
Yeah, well, that's so exciting.
We're in there.
All right. You recording?
I am recording. I believe everything should be correct. I'm praying everything is
it's beautiful. I can see. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Okay. Can you see? Can you hear? Is everything good hearing wise?
Oh, I don't know. I don't listen. Yes, I can hear. Yeah.
Great. We're in business then.
All right. I'm going to do the thing.
Get it in there.
On today's episode of the Glue Guys, we're going to hit the nine biggest questions. Some of them listeners submitted, some of them Brian and Mike submitted about the Bucks Nets game round 2 series. And we're actually going to start the show. The Lakers are dead.
Wow.
We're going to talk about that murder that happened in Los Angeles. Welcome back to the Glue Guys. This is Mike here. Say hello, Brian.
Hello.
Check us out on Twitter at BKGlueGuys, netsdaily.com, The Athletic. Get yourself behind that paywall, theathletic.com/glueguys.
Michael.
The Nets are back.
Yeah, this is going to be an incredibly academic episode here. So this is, get your master's degree in playoff preview here, Mike, because we're going deep, dog.
We're going so deep that we're going to be mining ore out of this series. That's how deep
Minecraft
into the crust of this Nets Bucks series. Yes, so exciting, so thrilling. Even though it is just round 2, we're getting a monster of a basketball series. Probably one of the greatest round 2 basketball series in the history of the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, people have come out of the woodwork. Bucks. The Hollinger article, which shout out to your boy John Hollinger, friend of the show, John Hollinger.
Friend of the
show. That was a great write-up and did really put on display like what I think everyone agrees, like this is it. This is the series. There's a lot riding on this for both of these teams. We've leveraged some serious futures, and we're going to find out who's got the better track, for the next couple of years. Who's got the inside track, and it's going to be like really. This is it. We'll get to it, but people have been talking about whether this is sort of a little bit more like the finals than a second round, Mike.
Yeah, and so, I tweeted this out, and I'm going to replay the joke for the podcast audience. I have not felt this level of excitement and anxiety.
You're anxious.
Combination of both.
Yeah.
Since I was a little camper at Camp Barry, my Jewish all-boys sleepaway camp. When the girls' camp, Camp Louise, would come for their, we would put on a play for them, and then we would have a dance.
Oh my Lord, that is a high anxiety situation to put on a play for your significant others,
9-year-old
for your future
marry.
spouses. Yeah.
I mean, the pool, if you're to marry another Jew, it's a small pool. And so basically that was your wife. One of those women was going to be my wife.
I get it.
And I knew the pressure of that moment as a 9-year-old.
And you rose to the challenge, and you got married at 9. Like,
it's also a very Jewish thing to do, to like put on a production. Like,
yeah,
we're gonna put on a production for you, and then we're gonna dance to Ace of Base.
I was one of like 3 Catholic kids at a Jewish sleepaway camp myself, and was a bit of a spectacle. I remember there was one night, there's Mardi Gras night, which is like the only thing is you dress up as like as like twins of other people, and I didn't like. There's only one other kid named Tommy Kennedy. Shout out to Tommy Kennedy. And they're like, you guys just look alike, so you should be twins. We didn't dress up like anything. And I was just like, you guys, this is the only 2 Irish kids in this whole thing.
All right, you Gentiles.
Yeah, it was good.
Potato-eating Gentiles. Get together.
Yeah.
Yes, so I am so excited. And yes, we're live on YouTube right now. There are people in the chat. We appreciate it. We will be getting to farm your voices as we continue this thing.
Yes.
But first, Brian, before we even get to the Bucks and Nets, there's something that happened last night.
Okay.
We're recording this on Friday that needs to be discussed.
Mm-hmm.
It is that the Lakers are dead.
Yeah.
They're DEAD dead. If this was a murder mystery podcast, they would be, like a visiting professor in town who ends up dead in a ditch, and we got to figure out who killed him.
Oh.
That's who they
professor?
are. Yeah, I don't know. I was kind of thinking of Mayor of Easttown. Did you finish Mayor?
I didn't start Mayor. That's where I was.
No professors died in the making of that show. But
I was gonna say.
there's something else. It's a big deal because the whole year we had been discussing who was the Embiid stopper, who was the Giannis stopper, and then who was the Anthony Davis. Like, how would the Nets guard Anthony Davis, and how would they guard, frankly, LeBron James?
Mm-hmm.
Now that's not a concern and not a worry.
No, it's not.
I'm not going to ask you like how much that would change the percentage chance that the Nets are going to win the championship. But when you look at the Western Conference teams, doesn't it feel like the getting through the Eastern Conference will feel harder than winning the championship if the Nets get there?
Yeah, I agree with that. Like I'm not going to even pull any punches on that. Like if the Phoenix Suns make it out of the West, that's great. That's great for us. I mean, I'll just say we played that one game that we recently played against them towards the end of the season. I was like, that's who I want. I want those guys. No disrespect. They're, a fine team. I mean, Chris Paul's sort of going through his injury in the playoff meme thing, which is, annoying for him that's always a persistent part of his narrative. But yeah, just insofar as like picking them or like Utah or Denver. I mean, Denver is interesting kind of. I don't know if you caught any of that Nugs, Blazing Nugs series. Have people been making jokes about Blazing Nugs in that?
Actually, I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
We should. Everyone should. I mean, it is Oregon v. Colorado.
Yeah, right.
We should all be blazing nugs in that type of situation. I would like to be dismissive of Denver, right? Like, oh, they don't have Jamal Murray. It's Jokic. Yeah, Jokic is really good, but like, what beyond that? There's not like there's Michael Porter Jr., but there's not a ton of talent on the team. But Jokic is the MVP, and if we're all so concerned about Joel Embiid, frankly, Jokic as an offensive force affects more of the game
very much
through his passing than Embiid does. And the rest of the players around Jokic, they're better offensively than what Embiid has. So, like, I don't want to be dismissive of Denver. The interesting thing that is lined up. So, obviously, I think, what is it? Dallas Mavericks, Clippers play tonight. I believe they play tonight. And the Mavs are up 3-2. It does feel like sort of like if the Clippers can actually beat the Mavericks, if they can come back down and close out the series and win the series, they do have the most talent. And they would be, it would be the ultimate sort of like little brother NBA Finals matchup. Nets, Clippers, the two teams that are in the shadow of the Knicks and Lakers. And the two teams that both became sort of like the new superstar destination in the exact same summer. It would be interesting. But yeah, the Lakers being out, because like the thing about the Lakers was that Anthony Davis tried to play in the game and he couldn't, and good for him for trying. I mean, that's amazing. He tried to play and he obviously was physically unable to, but he still put out the effort. Like the Lakers, if they had gotten past the Suns, would have been one of those teams where like they would have gotten healthier, right? As the playoffs would have gone along. They become more formidable if they're healthier. Them not being there is such a curveball into this playoffs. Such a like LeBron not going to the finals in general is crazy.
Can we also, I mean, I don't know what the conclusion of this was, but the Joel Embiid news that like hasn't had a whole lot of consequence seemingly, but like is massively consequential. Like, I don't know what's going on with their rollout of that information, but I'm confused, Mike.
Yeah, so it's basically like there's some tearing, right? There's slight tearing. And then if you,
I mean, but they make it seem like it's like everyone's got like some tearing. Like, let's not get crazy here. Like, what is happening? Yeah, a small tear seems significant. Yeah.
And then there's, I think his name is it's something Stotts. It's one of the sort of premier NBA injury analysts out there. I believe he runs some blog. I got to look it up, and I apologize. But he had a whole thread about how the injury that Embiid has is the injury that Andrew Bynum had at one point,
right.
And then it led down this awful road.
I saw this.
It is developing into an interesting situation. The Nets have had really bad, sort of injury luck, I guess, throughout the season. Guys in and out of the lineup, the big three barely played any games together. But if you're looking at the map going forward, there's the Bucks, very present threat. They don't have Dante DiVincenzo, Delaware's own.
Yeah.
But after, whatever happens, Embiid hobbled, Denver without Murray, Chris Paul injured with Phoenix, Kawhi, who his health has always been sort of a question. And then there's Utah. Utah is very good and they're healthy and all that stuff. But it's the Lakers being off the board it just opens up all the possibilities. It puts a finals matchup where there will be no LeBron, which is so rare in the past decade that LeBron's not in there. The reigning champion is gone. The Western Conference team, one of these teams will be in the finals. Dallas, the Clippers, Denver, or Utah. Like any of those choices, probably except for the Clippers. But even the Clippers, and it would be amazing if the Clippers made the finals for their franchise. Yeah. All of those choices are wild.
It is.
Frankly.
When you put it like that, it is wild.
And then the Eastern Conference. It's Sixers, Hawks, Nets, and Bucks. And this is really the premier series.
Well, I guess so. Joel Embiid is going to be playing in this series. Is that the short answer?
I'll have to look up what exactly is happening, but I think he's going to play. I mean, I think the indication is he's going to play. How far can the 76ers go without Joel Embiid? I don't know.
Not very. IMO.
It did before we get to the Nets, because we will. What the Hawks dispatched. They dispatched the Knicks in 5 games.
They really did.
In very dramatic fashion. As much as discussed about sort of the renaissance of Knicks fandom, out in the first round after 5 games, so not fully. Does that give you any pause though? Maybe the Hawks are better than what we all were kind of thinking going.
No. I think the Knicks were worse than what I hate to say. I mean, this is without prejudice or bias. I think my GW had a good take on this one. This is an old head take, but he was like, this Tibbs Julius Randle relationship is very much like Hubie Brown Bernard King, in which we are,
that was an old man take,
riding a power forward with a suboptimal team around him to sustained mediocrity. That's but in the process grinding his bones into dust with massive minutes. That's that, and it seems like that's where we're at. I mean, in the last month, I said this before, Julius Randle averaged 44.5 minutes per game and we all know there's only 48 minutes in a basketball game, Mike. That's for a team that had already made the playoffs. There was no amount of resting. There was not a glimmer of rest going on in that last little stretch. So anyways, I'm interested to see what the Knicks do in terms of retooling, whether this is a moment where they're hey, we overachieved here, or if they're going to quadruple down on this particular crew. And I don't know what you do exactly from their position.
I mean, I think for them, it's there's going to be 2 schools of thought within that building, and who wins out.
Yeah.
And the James Dolan school of thought traditionally has been, hey, here's a good thing. Let's multiply it. Let's add a bunch of talent that's expensive that maybe affects the long-term trajectory of the team in a negative way. But let's make the DeMar DeRozan signing, or let's give Lonzo Ball
the DeMar
max
DeRozan contract. Signing. That's happening. That's coming down the pike. Yeah.
And you know what's funny? DeRozan would be. He's never been like a great defender, obviously. And he's mid-range, Mr. Mid-range. But I could see Tibbs figuring out a way to deploy him. But if he's on that team with Randall, who's also a master of the mid-range at this point in his career, though Randall's a good three-point shooter this past season, and RJ Barrett, who has never had a chance to have a spaced out roster. Like when he was at Duke, he was with Zion Williamson and everyone was in the paint and there was no 3-point shooting. He goes to the Knicks last year and they were like one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in NBA history. This year they were good at 3-point shooting, but still Randall was occupying a lot of that space. It's going to be the Knicks have the potential to, like, if the Clippers lose, then Kawhi Leonard will be out there. Potentially he will be a free agent, so we'll see. But where are we now? Let's do this. Let's take a quick break.
Oh, okay.
Coming back, 9 biggest questions. Nets,
9.
Bucks, round 2.
9.
And we're back. Brian.
Good to be back.
So we will answer the 9. We'll ask and answer the 9 biggest questions.
Full service.
Nets, Bucks, round 2. Let me start off with this, and we kind of touched on this, but this is the first question. If the Nets win the NBA championship, will this series, this Bucks series, actually be the hardest series that they face? Obviously not accounting for injury. Let's say, you could say that, James Harden got hurt in the 3rd round or the finals, and then the Nets really had to gut it out. But is the Bucks matchup the hardest one versus likely the 76ers versus whoever is going to come out of the Western Conference? I say 100% yes, that this is going to be the hardest matchup. The Bucks are the most difficult team.
But can I ask you, would you have said that before the partial meniscus bomb was dropped? I mean, I know that we did the caveat of like injuries aside, but like let's not do injuries aside.
This is an injury that exists, right?
Right. Yeah.
This one, I'm saying hypothetical. Hypothetical injuries. I mean, for all season long, I had always felt that the Bucks, if they're right and they're rolling, that they were the tougher team because they match up defensively the best against the Nets. Of all the teams, Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid are great defenders, and they have Tybal in Philly, and he's a really great defender, and they match up. But also, those aren't guys that I'm concerned about, yes, but I do think the Nets could still attack the 76ers defense. The Bucks just have so much length. And they have Drew Holiday, who whichever guard he's on the Nets are gonna go away from whoever Drew Holiday's on. Giannis and Brook Lopez and Chris Middleton, so long, active. It's a real. They have all that length, which is gonna really make it tough for the Nets to score at times, not throughout the whole game. Where the 76ers. I guess I'm just not as concerned about. I'm not that fearful of Ben Simmons locking down. I'm putting quotes around locking down James Harden. So I think this is the hardest series. Yes.
I'll even 100%. Inflate this series more. This is in the Kong versus Godzilla of this series here.
Please.
A whole platitude, a whole cliche is on the line that we often use, often thrown around, that defense wins championships, Mike. You've heard that before, I'm sure. We're going to find out, because I would say that our offensive efficiency is equal to their defensive efficiency, and now it's time to do a Donkey Kong punch and find out who's got the better situation there. So our whole conception about basketball is on the table in the series, Mike. It's going to explode some brains. Okay, the stakes are high.
Do you think the Nets defensively? How do they match up against the Bucks offense in that way? I know, we're going to talk so many more about specific matchups, but is there any solace that you take that the Bucks maybe?
So
they don't really have shot creators. They have guys who can. Giannis can create a shot for himself in a very specific way that has been shut down in the playoffs. But Drew Holiday's not really that. Chris Middleton can make shots, but again, he's not a classic wing, and he's not like Jason Tatum exactly.
I did watch some footy. Like I went through the YouTube, and shout out to Matt Brooks, shout out to all the other people that did Nets Bucks preview pods, because that was helpful. You know, we all need that kind of that film study breakdown stuff. It's super valuable. So shouts out to all those guys. I would say that like my after aggregating a few of those videos and sort of piecing it together with my own preconceived notions, I think that the real difference here offensively is just basically like the Bucks don't have a super great half-court offense and rely a lot on these opportunistic, second chance points off of turnovers. A lot of that kind of world is where they do significant damage. And I think that actually plays into the Nets' strengths a little bit. I feel like if they were to work mismatch, like the Giannis mismatch is the one that like everyone's been talking about and thinking about. And weirdly, I think Matt Brooks highlighted the fact that Blake Griffin had the best results. And this is actually kind of like past an eye test that we had. Like,
yeah, but I'm worried about the Blake Griffin.
It's not a great. It's something that needs to get like obviously like. He's going to do 3 possessions, and then by the 4th one, like Giannis will have figured out what exactly to do to like work that, all night long, and then you have to figure out somebody else to like throw a new look at him. I think that's how it's going to be the entire series. But like in their half court, all they're really doing is like they do basically a pretty simple like guard screen switch for Giannis to switch off their guy. It's not unlike Jason Tatum, except now Giannis wants to be either putting that guy in the post or just like taking him really fast off the dribble and just beating the smaller guy with his size.
Right.
And
that guy, put a name to it, Kyrie Irving.
Is Kyrie Irving, right?
They're gonna hunt Kyrie Irving like even worse than what happened with the Celtics. It's gonna be that times 1,000 because the mismatch is so wide. Like if Kyrie's switching constantly, I mean, the Nets switching defense has been a success, right? So it's not. I don't want to like bash the defense. It has made the Nets a better defensive team when they switch everything. When DeAndre Jordan has gone off the floor and they switch everything, they're a better defense.
Yeah.
But if we get like 5 possessions in a row of Kyrie Irving having to try to guard Giannis, and this has nothing to do with Kyrie. It's just like Kyrie is 6'2", and he weighs 180, whatever he weighs. Giannis is the Greek freak, That's an unfair matchup.
Yeah.
And so a lot of what I think I'm going to be interested in this series is how is Steve Nash going to account for sort of everything that he knows that Budenholzer wants and Giannis wants to do to the Nets on that side of the floor.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, we remember that one game, there's the one Bucks game where they basically were like 10 feet off of Giannis when he had the ball. And it was DeAndre Jordan was mostly guarding him at that point. And Giannis was like really efficient from 3 in that one game. And it gave him confidence and all that stuff. I wonder how much they're going to play around with that to start the series, to be like, Giannis, we're just going to give you every outside shot.
I think they're going to continue
to do.
They're going to slag off him significantly. And the only difference between like DeAndre Jordan, who might actually get some looks here because, although anyways, he's got his own issues. But, I mean, the big difference between DeAndre Jordan and Blake Griffin is that Blake at least makes the attempt to close out on the mid-range shot that invariably happens. And DeAndre just, like, either can't be bothered or doesn't know how. Or I don't know what happens there, but it just doesn't happen. And that's been a problem. Part of also their, like, half-court offense is, like, and Hollinger talked about this in his piece about, like, Brook Lopez being sort of a linchpin of their offense in a situation like this where, they have such a size advantage. And I was thinking about this, and I was like, is Harden going to be tasked with Brook Lopez duty? Like, because I kind of want to see it, because Brook Lopez is not going to be faster than James Harden, and I think his medicine ball body is enough to like give him some resistance in the post. And I don't know if that option is going to be there for them in the way that they have been using Brook Lopez in those situations. I'm a real believer in James Harden's post defense. Like I'm done qualifying it. It's excellent. It's quite good, and it should be done more often.
Harden's body sometimes, not all the time, sometimes looks like, when they have like police dog training and the cop wears like almost like a bubble suit so that the dog can chew on any. That Harden's belly to start the season looked like he was wearing that. Like a fat suit, frankly. But obviously he's a premier athlete in great physical shape and blah, blah, blah. He does yoga, plyometrics, all that stuff. I mean, that is what intrigues me so much about the series is that there's the coaching, like the player on the court intelligence dynamics, the coaching dynamics is going to be, there's such clashes of styles. Like Budenholzer for years, he always could build a team. He could take an okay team and make them very good, but he hasn't been able to take the very good team and make them great in the playoffs. And it's because of his system. He was an acolyte of his own system. You know, he believed in the words that he preached. Usually, if you're leading a cult, you really don't believe the stuff that you're saying, right? Because you're just trying to hoodwink people. Yeah. He really believed. He drank his own Kool-Aid.
Yeah,
Mr. Budenholzer. So he sticks rigidly to a system. This year, he's expanded out both the defensive switches and the way that they play defense. He's expanded out the way that they play offense, partly because they got new talent. Nash holds almost nothing to sacred, right? Like the only thing that Nash really wants is quick ball movement and take an open shot when you have it. But beyond that, it's like, yeah, they run pick and roll sometimes, or they just do ISO, or they'll do, a sort of an intricate set to get Bruce Brown open down low in the dunker spot.
That really is the three. It's like Harden orchestrating some like mismatchy thing that results in something playmaky and good. Versus like, and then KD, Kyrie, ISO. Harden has not been ISOing very much at all. And then just like pick and roll with any of those three. That's like our entire system basically. And I mean, it's very effective, obviously, because we have such good players. But it's not complicated. It's very simple.
Yeah. And then on defense, it's switch.
Yeah.
It's switch everything. And there's been variation off of like switch everything. It's also been if Kyrie switches on to Jason Tatum or Giannis in this series, sometimes Kyrie will just like run away from them.
Yeah.
If they don't have the ball, and like Kevin Durant will come in and switch back, like off ball switching. I think we're going to see actually a lot of that. Like if Giannis, let's say Giannis does not have the ball in his hands, but the Bucks do an off ball switch or off ball screen offensively. I think the Nets a lot of times this series will be like, typically they would stick with whoever the switch was with. Kyrie just be like, I'm not gonna go to Giannis. Like that is silly. Why would I guard him? But so that was question one, but we're answering a bunch of different questions, and let's do question two. This is from friend of the show, Mina Kimes. Mina, thank you so much for this question. Will Nick Claxton get more minutes? And do you think he's a fan of the British post-punk group, the Claxtons? I know for a fact Nick Claxton is.
Yeah.
He's a big fan of post-punk British groups.
As we all are.
Is One Direction a post-punk?
Yes. I believe so.
Yeah. Okay. And will Nick Claxton get more minutes? This is a tough one because in my heart of hearts, I say no.
Yeah.
I want him to, but there's a reason why he's not.
Well,
and I don't know what it is.
I think it'll be an interesting, you know how like back when we had like the terrorist threat level, like indicator thing, and it would get like into orange or red. I think we're going to be in threat level midnight if Nick Claxton's getting significant minutes on Giannis. It'll be a sign of things not going well. Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting.
You like that?
That means something wrong has happened if Nick Claxton.
I think so.
A Giannis stopper.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Do you
well,
I just think it
basically
what it signals to me is that our like options, plan A and plan B are falling through, and so like let's give Claxton some looks.
Let's figure it out.
Let's figure something out. He's a complete unknown. He, in the Boston series was good at times, not good at others. Seems like at the very end of that he got back in being his, lovable old self. But it's a big task for a guy with that amount of experience. I mean, it is like, it's the biggest task. And it's not to say that he's not equipped for it. I think it's like it's just a massive unknown, right? And if you're doing a massive unknown, you can experiment with it I would love to see him experiment with it a little bit in, the first and second game, just to get his beak wet here. But I don't think it's going to be like a significant minutes changing kind of thing quite out of the gate.
Are you saying he has a dry beak?
I think he's
got to wet that beak.
His beak's getting like gotta get some chapstick on that beak. Yeah.
Lube it up. Lip balm. Thank you. So we obsess over Nick Claxton. I think most people who watch the Nets obsess over Nick Claxton because he's so talented, and when he does come on the floor, typically it feels right. Like it doesn't ever feel ridiculous. Like he makes smart decisions and he's active. and ultra athletic, and there's times when you're just like, why is he not playing more? Here's his minutes distribution in that Celtics series. 11 minutes, 18, 16, 8, and 12. He averaged 3 points per game, 1.4 blocks per game, and 3.6 rebounds. Now, I'm sure if we did per 36,
yeah, those blocks numbers are great.
Moses Malone.
Yeah.
But
Jeremy Lin's
it's so funny.
Per 36. Can we sponsored by Jeremy Lin?
Don't. We can't bring up.
Sorry.
Jeremy Lin's fan base has an audio notification.
Yeah,
it's like discussed in a negative way.
It's like saying Beetlejuice 3
we
times.
Love Jeremy. Yeah. It's like it's this funny thing of like obsessing about Nick Claxton. He averaged 3 points and 3.5 rebounds a game in this one postseason series. We played sparingly, and I always wanted him to play more at times. And I felt that he is the best at rim deterrent. That's not Kevin Durant on this team. And you can't really ask Durant to just be floating around the basket trying to block shots. He's better when he's coming in secondary, coming off his man as a guy's driving to the hole and trying to block the shot from a trailing position.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Claxton is the best at-rim deterrent on the team. There's a reason he's not playing more. And it must frankly be that Harden, probably just Harden, but I would say Harden and Kyrie, they're very particular about the big men that they like to play with. And again, mostly Harden. And while there's a good connection between the two, I think there's probably also a lot of things that Nick Claxton's not doing correctly on the offensive end of the floor that sort of disrupts the way Harden would like to attack.
Mm-hmm.
They had a good chemistry earlier, like pre-postseason, which is called the season. And so there's something he's not doing right. And I'm going to have faith that Harden and Steve Nash and Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant know they only should have so much in Nick Claxton. But athletically, beyond Kevin Durant, actually probably even more so than Kevin Durant, Nick Claxton is the best matchup against Giannis. It's just, as you're saying, it's like it's kind of a lot to expect a second-year player to come in, a guy who's not had like big minutes all year, to come in and be the Giannis stopper, right? So I'm interested to see how much he gets deployed against Giannis, if at all.
Yeah.
But I do think he needs to be on the floor.
Yeah, there's another part of that too, which is people talked about, and I forget who it was in the Twitter, but since we got gobbled up by the likes of Tristan Thompson, for crying out loud, what does our front line look like in terms of utility, rebounding, that kind of jank? Are we going to be giving up just like a massive opportunity for second chance points here for the Bucks, who already are pretty good at that? Does that kind of stuff spook you, like getting out of just Giannis tunnel vision and into just like does the rest of that team?
Well, it's an interesting thing because like you almost want the Bucks to sell out and to focus on offensive rebounding, because ultimately the percentages are going to work out where like the Nets are then going to get a fast break opportunity. And when the Nets get fast break opportunities, they shoot threes. Like it'll be Joe Harris trailing or Kyrie or Kevin Durant trailing off of a Harden, Harden leading the break. And that's like a good number. That's like the Bucks. Yeah, they may get a couple extra twos, but the Nets are going to get a couple extra threes. Yeah. And that's going to work out nicely. Is
there a really good, maybe somebody in the chat knows this, if there's a really good like adjusted rebound percentage thing? I actually haven't dug in too deep into this metric, but like, for example, like over the last two playoff series, Bucks versus Nets, or like, Bucks Heat and Nets, Celtics or whoever we just played, I don't even remember these guys, our like true shooting and effective field goal percentages are like significantly higher than the Bucks, like, in some games to the tune of like 50% higher. Because we have a very efficient half-court offense here, which obviously begets less rebounding opportunities. Like, isn't that part of the factor?
Yeah, it has to be part of the factor. But there's rebounding percentage.
I mean, but does rebound, like, does it account for? I guess it does. I guess percentage
opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Success versus success and opportunity, right? Wouldn't that be the percentage? That would be the numerator and denominator. Is that?
That's the Pythagorean theorem, I believe, actually, is what that is.
Biggest question, Bucks and Nets, number 3. Are Giannis and Harden going to Jake Paul each other?
Like bop each other?
Are they going to fight? They hate each other. They hate each other.
Do they? What is it? Tell me the story about this. Where is this from?
To trace it back, a lot of it has to do with like their MVP race against each other. Harden and Giannis were, I think Giannis's first year for MVP, or maybe it was Harden's year when he won the MVP. I think Harden still won the MVP. I keep referencing it. He has to have won the MVP before. They were always competing against each other for awards. There was famously, when Giannis was drafting the All-Star teams, that he had an opportunity to draft Harden, but he said he wants guys who pass the ball.
Wow.
And that
vocal snub. Yeah.
And Harden, I believe, responded on social media
to
that slander.
And what did he say?
Just something.
You
have the document
does he get more assists per game? He's like, check out my assist numbers, Giannis.
I think that was literally it, actually.
That's where I would go.
It was like, check out my assists.
Yeah.
So, and if you kind of even go dig deeper, maybe they see it's like Batman and Joker. They see a little bit of themselves in each other.
Wow.
You know, they're both nuclear, singular talents who in the playoffs have come up short and are defended differently in the playoffs than they are in the regular season. And they've been less effective in the postseason versus the regular season because of the way that they play basketball. That gives them a lot of success in the regular season, but not as much in the postseason. So they hate each other. Are they going to stare down each other? Are we going to get a moment? Are we going to get a fight? If so, would you sacrifice? Question for you, Brian.
Okay.
One of the biggest questions. Would you sacrifice
Harden and Giannis? Okay.
If a fight knocked out both Giannis and Harden for the rest of the series, would you take that trade?
They like simultaneously like Superman punch each other at the like,
and they just go down.
Would I take that trade? You know, that's actually a tough one.
If you could remove Giannis off the board, but it's a Queen's Gambit, if you will.
Really,
I don't know what the Queen's Gambit is.
Man,
not a Sophie's Choice. I know that.
I hate to say it, but I've kind of like, I think just because of like everyone realizes just how like much Harden makes this thing go. Like I think we're getting the worst end of that deal potentially. I think it net benefits us, but like that's actually a really tough one.
Net benefit. Good name for a podcast.
There it is. Find our sister podcast, Net Benefit. Anyways, I don't know. Do you take that?
Do I take that?
I don't think I do. You do?
Yes, I do. I
guess ultimately I'd take Kyrie and KD over Drew Holiday and Chris
Middleton.
Chris Middleditch. Whoever. Yeah. I'm going Middleditch on this going forward.
So that's the equation, is that Harden does make the thing go to such a great degree for the Nets, but if you remove Giannis, are the Bucks nearly as special as they are right now? No. He's the thing. He's the thing that makes them a really good team up into the 2-minute mark, and it's just whether Giannis can be good in the final 2 minutes determines whether they'll win the game or not. If you remove him for those previous 46 minutes, then they're lacking a lot of scoring and efficiency and all the things that Giannis brings to the team. So, moral of the story, James Harden, get in a fight with Giannis. That is what we're advocating here. That's what Brian's advocating.
Do it.
Brian advocates for violence. I'm non-violence, but Brian's I'm
a violent guy. I'm a sick puppy.
Question number 4, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a tough question. So I'm really going to put the heat on your seat, as they say. Which net needs to have the best series? Their best series, excuse me. So it could be anyone. It could be one of the big three, or it could be a role player. You choose. Who needs to have their best series? My answer is James Harden.
Yeah, mine is too. It's a dumb answer, but it's this is his moment, Mike. This is really the moment. Because like in terms of all of what needs to happen, sorry, I got a cough here. All of what needs to happen, it's coming from James Harden. And his ability to like orchestrate those mismatches, like just like the whole thing of like where, like in the Celtics series, like the beginning of every play is James Harden just a step inside the half court and just being like Joe Harris, we're gonna go like the second switch off here is gonna be you getting Tristan Thompson so that we can stretch him out. That's how far deep his like orchestration powers go. He's thinking about like not just the first switch off and getting like, you know, his man onto who he wants. It's like, how do I get each and every guy their mismatch to make this thing happen? So his IQ.
That's why I call him the circuit breaker. He
Yeah.
has so many switches.
Yes. Nice, Mike. Yeah. So, anyways, and with like a rally.
That was your only genuine nice mic in the history of this. You were like, actually,
that's not bad. But yeah, for a team that's like really smart and defensively savvy, like the Bucks, it'll be put that. He's like the Professor X right now. He's putting his like mental cognition powers to the test. He'll be. I don't know if there's any moment where Professor X really did that at scale and it worked out. But whatever that moment is
well,
this.
If you want to go into it, when he
Sure.
was both operating both in the current day time and the past time, when what was it, Days of Future Past or whatever, whichever X-Men movie, when like there was the cast from both X-Men franchises that were in the same movie.
Okay.
I would say when he was both manipulating present day and past day, that's a lot.
That's a lot to
brain
take
power.
on. So that moment, that's this for James Harden right now.
Yeah. So so the thing about Kevin Durant, like watching Devin Booker dominate the Lakers the way he did, that the Nets almost like they don't really need those singular performances because if Durant scores 45, like the way Jason Tatum did, in the Nets Celtics series, like it's amazing, but also the Nets can survive by having a 30, 25, and 25 performance from their big three, and then just like Joe Harris hitting a couple of 3-point shots, right? Like they don't need the singular Kobe Bryant level performance. And Durant, there's still like he's played defense on Tatum. He was hyper efficient in the series. We still haven't seen like the ceiling of Kevin Durant. So like if we get peak Kevin Durant for the entire series, then that's the end. Like if he has his best series, then yes, the Nets win. And I actually think the Nets would win convincingly. But consistency-wise, it's Harden. And it's not only Harden offensively, it's what you talked about. It's his belly defense, his paunchy belly defense. Kyrie cannot be good defensively. Kyrie physically can't be effective defensively against bigger players. Harden can. And if Harden gets switched onto Middleton or Giannis at times, if Harden can maintain his strength and his feet in those situations and make defensive stops, he has the ability to impact both ends of the floor in a really unique way. And if he's dominant Harden that everyone has ever wanted him to be in the playoffs, if he is that, then the Nets win. No question. Let's just take a quick break. Coming back, we'll finish the final 5 questions that are the most important questions to answer in the Bucks-Nets series. And we're back, Brian. Question number 5. Should Brook Lopez be bitter about how the Nets treated him?
First, one thing, I don't think he will be, just because Brook is a sweet, gentle soul. I don't foresee a whole lot of issue there. I don't know. Do you feel that way? I think
he should. I think he should have been bitter in the moment.
Maybe.
The Nets, not when he got traded, but like, remember how often Brook's name was in trade rumors when he was with the Nets, constantly.
Yeah.
Right. And even after the Dwight Mayer or whatever, and like he was leading up to that point, he was in trade rumors, and then after that point, it was still like there was a moment when he was going to get traded to the Thunder to play with Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook, and I forget who the Nets would have gotten back in that situation. But
we were trying to trade him for Melo too. Like there was so many versions of this that would have been gross. That would have been the grossest.
And all Brook did was like be hyper productive.
Yeah,
a nice spokesperson for the team.
Clocked in. He brought his lunch pail. It was filled. He had a Mickey Mouse thermos with SpaghettiOs in there. He clocked in and he went to
chugged it, chugged it on.
And
the
he
floor.
did rip through moves all night, every night.
Most rip throughs.
Yeah.
So like, I think he should have been bitter in the moment. Now, obviously not. I mean, the Nets did. I mean, we can use the term unceremoniously dumped him on the Lakers, but if he had traded to Los Angeles, how mad could you be?
I didn't think it was an unceremonious dumping. I mean, I feel like
it was a ceremonial dumping
of places to go. Like the Lakers is a decent landing spot. Like,
yes,
and then he also like totally landed on his feet in a championship contending Bucks team. I think it like net benefit. Shout out to our new show, Net Benefit. I think it was to his net benefit ultimately. Like, he needed to define himself as a player to a certain extent. Like it wasn't gonna like if he continued to be like the 20 and like 5 guy, because I mean his rebounding was always kind of trending downwards. That was like what his identity was going to be. It just took him 1 year to figure out like, okay, that's not it anymore. Like I gotta adapt to this crazy new game of ours. And then thus bore Splash Mountain and everything else from it. So I think if you take a 10,000 mile view, it's like this is beneficial for everybody involved.
And obviously, the Nets have already done a tribute video to Brook Lopez. Like, is there going to be a special acknowledgement to Brook game 1? Like, is there going to be the fans are going to cheer him. It would kind of be funny if everyone just booed him because
I would like that.
Has Brook Lopez ever been booed in his entire life?
Yeah, amazing. I think that I wouldn't put it past the shout out to the Brooklyn Brigade who might have a little a friendly chant for Brook Lopez. Brook Lopez's name isn't Brook Lopez. Like that doesn't. We need to figure out something. Anything with just 3 syllables like that. Brook Lopez. I don't know. They got to figure. I trust them to figure it out. I can't workshop this live here.
Yeah. So I don't think he should have been. I don't think he should be bitter. I think he's already talked about how he's excited. I mean, players speak, but he's excited to go play in Brooklyn in front of the fans again and in this series. He's a friend of the show. He's been on the pod before.
Yeah.
In an interesting interview where he was on the Bucks and he did not want to talk basketball. Like,
yeah,
I would ask basketball questions. I asked about Giannis. He did not want to. He was like giving 1-word answers. And then we talk about Star Wars, and he ripped off like a 3-minute answer about how Kathleen Kennedy, the producer of Lucasfilms, is ruining Star Wars. And I was like, okay,
yeah,
cool.
Well, plus he had serious, access to grime because they didn't hire him to be Chewbacca, which is one of the great oversights in hiring practices, generally speaking, not even just in the film industry. That's a layup. That's a layup right there.
All right, question 6, and this is from Brain Newman on Twitter. This is a big question. Will we see DeAndre Jordan this series, and if so, how much? Brian, I push it to you.
Wow. Do we want to take bets on this? If he gets any minutes at all,
the over under.
Well,
he's gonna play.
I don't know if this is illegal or not, but I'll for the live chat. I got $5.
BetMGM is the betting sponsor of the Glue Guys. So
perfect.
It's probably not on BetMGM, but shout out BetMGM.
Yeah, well, we'll go on the Discord. Shout out to the Discord. Links in the Twitter bio. We'll do some dirty streaming gambling over there. But I think we will see DeAndre Jordan, Mike. I think that we're going to give enough looks at Giannis where, I mean, if I'm a betting man, and I haven't been, but sometimes I will, I would bet you will see DeAndre Jordan rear his head in this series at some point.
His head will be reared.
Yeah.
Yes. I think, though it's interesting to me that if you are going to deploy him in the Celtics series or in the Bucks series, that you didn't play him at all in the Celtics series. Like I would have thought, like if Nash had it in his mind, we probably want DeAndre to play in the Bucks. We should give him some minutes in the Celtics to like have him play basketball,
get his legs warm. Yeah.
But I guess it probably in the grand scheme of things, it wouldn't have impacted all that much. I wonder, do we see him in game 1? Like, is it something that Nash immediately goes to in game 1, not starting, but that he plays? I think yes, he plays in game 1.
Wow, really?
I think they start out trying to see if DeAndre can provide a little something against the Bucks.
Wow, really?
And then they can pull back and say, it's just not working. I don't think
that's a spicy take. A game 1 DeAndre Jordan.
I think we're going to see game 1 down. Particularly, it's also a home game. It's like the vibes of that. Like role players play better at home.
Is that it? That's a thing. Yeah. Role players play better.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the playoffs, that's usually kind of like the advantage of playing at home is not that the stars play better; it's that the role players play better. I have no statistics. That's
I was
going to
say that. Yeah, that's good. I didn't want to challenge it because I knew.
I think we see him in game 1. I think. Like, I hate the term short leash. Like, that's kind of like a weird, where does that come from? But I think I think it's like an acknowledgement that, like, DeAndre, you're going to get these minutes. Prepare for these 8 minutes in game 1, and then we'll reassess and see if it worked. And if it didn't work, the only thing that the problem is with DeAndre Jordan is that he doesn't switch. He doesn't switch defense. He plays drop zone defensive coverage. And if the Nets are going to switch everything, then he kind of messes with that entire defense.
Pretty big liability. It's tough.
Question number 7. This is a exacting question, okay?
Yeah.
Exact question. In the final 2 minutes, who is the best Giannis stopper? So this isn't like throughout the game. It's like Jeff Green's going to guard him. By the way, we got good news on Jeff Green that his recovery is looking better, that there's a possibility he may play in game 1, which would be huge. I'd almost prefer if like just save him for game, like let's get him a little healthier, save him for game 2, but I'm not a doctor, so I don't know. My stepdad's a dentist, same thing. Final 2 minutes. Who is the best Giannis stopper?
Man,
I think the easiest answer is Durant because of length.
It's the most obvious, just in terms of Durant's a legitimately great defender, and he put on some good work on Jason Tatum. It's funny.
Is there a way to do like, you remember like when you were a kid in like kid TV shows, like one kid would be on another kid's shoulders and then they would wear like a big like overcoat jacket and they would act like they're an adult?
Yeah.
Is there a way that Bruce Brown and like Alize Johnson could do that?
Oh, wow. Great combo. Great combo.
Is that who you want? Length and like,
I mean, you could just go like DBZ, like, they're doing the like merging of the people thing, where they touch fingers. That's a good one. What's his name? Chat. Somebody figure out the name of when you combine Loose Boost with Alize. Anyway, we'll figure it out. That's a great combo. I will say that the problem with Giannis is that his offense works in like 2 big pillars, and they're both super dangerous. And one is his ability to kind of take you off the drive really effectively and finish really quickly. And the other is he's really a banger in the post. He can actually just back your butt right into the hoop, and then he can score. And I feel like KD is good for slagging off and stopping the drive. I think he can do that with as much resistance as anybody else, which is not much. But I think he gets eaten alive in that post, unfortunately. I think, KD's post defense is it's swipey. He doesn't have he's got pretty he's got thin legs. That's not where he hangs his hat. That's not where he butters his bread, Mike. So what he does is he tries to, pull the chair out from under you.
How many ways are there to butter bread, by the way? We act like that's where he butters his bread. Is like there's just butter it where you butter bread.
Just on the top. Just one way. Same way. Unless you go on the bottom. You go on the bottom, don't you?
And then it's just a pool of butter.
You just let it drip into
disgusting.
Just hold it over your head and let it drip. So I think that
I agree with you.
So for the first half of his offensive, what Giannis wants to do, I think KD's great. But then the post stuff is a real concern, and that's the problem with Giannis. It's who can do both of those things, super well. It's not a whole lot of people.
Yeah, and so I said Durant, and as I'm thinking about it, if it's the final 2 minutes, maybe it's Harden. Hollinger, we talked about this before, but Hollinger made the case that Harden may be the best Giannis defender, and particularly if it's just the final 2 minutes, right? So that means. There's not a concern that Harden's going to foul out if he guards him the whole game. Typically, Harden would probably be more locked in those final 2 minutes than if he had to guard him the entirety of the game, which understandably, because he runs the offense. In those final 2 minutes, maybe it is Harden. Maybe he's just the guy because he's the bulkiest. He's extremely quick, long arms, smart, willing to fake a charge. It's not past Harden to act like he got knocked over and then he gets the call and all that stuff. So maybe it's Harden, probably Durant. It's not Kyrie Irving. I don't think so. Okay. Question 8, and we'll go this one quick because we're running out of time, Brian.
Oh, okay.
Do the Nets need to go super small or play big to beat the Bucks? We kind of talked about this with DeAndre or Nick Claxton. But what do you think is the most effective? To me, I love the idea of going small and really shaking up, forcing Bud to put a bunch of guards out there, because once Dante DiVincenzo went down, Delaware's own Dante DiVincenzo.
Great.
Again, the most famous Delawarean.
I think
more so than Joe Biden.
Dante DiVincenzo of Delaware is how that's the
Dante DiVincenzo of Delaware. Yeah. I love the idea of if the Nets trot out, Harden, Kyrie, Joe Harris, Kevin Durant, and then it's Bruce Brown, and Bruce Brown's kind of causing havoc, or if it's Landry Shamet or whatever, forcing Brook Lopez off the floor, forcing then on Pat Connaughton or Bryn Forbes. Connaughton's going to be annoying this series. Like I already can kind of see him getting in, just being that annoying presence. He's going to be an annoying defender. That's what he's going to do. That's kind of his act. But Bryn Forbes is a horrible defender, horrific. And I love the idea of forcing Budenholzer to be like, I need more speed. I need more versatility. I need guys that can kind of stay with all the Nets guards that are out there at the time. If Kevin Durant is the true five, that is a really effective lineup. Now, the thing that the Bucks could do is the Bucks really that then puts Giannis at the five. And Giannis at the five is like a crazy effective lineup that you could have. And then it could be, Middleton, Drew Holiday, whoever else they have out there. So, but I think it's going small versus big. I want to force the Bucks to adapt rather than the Nets try to shoehorn like DeAndre Jordan into a lineup with Jeff Green and
we just don't have great assets to compete with their version of the game. So like, let's just do our thing, as much as we possibly can. Yeah. And if Jeff Green's back and playing big, like I feel like Jeff Green's a pretty big, like people have said this, not a hot take, but it's a pretty important part of this whole thing working out.
Yeah, because he's the guy who can most sort of just stick with Giannis for large stretches of the game, and offensively, he's a better three-point shooter than Blake. And I'm a little worried about Blake. Blake did not look good against the Boston Celtics. Jeff Green, obviously got hurt in that series, so Blake had to be relied on even more. I still have hope for Blake that he's gonna, he's so smart and he is very accepting of the role that he's in. But he has his own limitations, and he isn't a really great three-point shooter, where Jeff Green is much more comfortable, at least from three. Final question for you.
Okay.
This is the biggest one of the whole show.
The big one.
This is where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah.
Series prediction. Okay. My prediction. Okay. A lot of people are saying Nets or Bucks in 7. I'm saying Nets in 6.
Wow. There it is. Bold prediction.
Even though I think that this is polarizing prediction. Wasn't that one of our segments?
It's a big bit. Great bit.
Big bit.
Yeah.
Even though I say that this series is the hardest possible series that the Nets are going to face coming up, I still may think they may go in a 7-game series later. I think it's going to be in 6 because so much of the analysis is focusing on it of like what the Bucks can do to the Nets. Not enough is focused on what the Nets can do to the Bucks. The Nets can go small, like we just talked about. There's going to be guards out there for the Bucks that are beyond Drew Holiday, who are not good defenders, and they're going to be forced to defend Kyrie or James Harden for long stretches of the game. Joe Harris is going to be a big factor because he's just going to be open. He's going to be open and if he's hitting 50% from 3, that's going to be devastating to the Bucks. And the Nets have shown all year when they are all together, not even all together, if they're just playing against a really good team, they have an amazing record against really good teams, I guess beyond the Bucks, because they lost the Bucks in 2 games. I really truly think there's multiple levels that the Nets can go up to in this series where the Bucks, I think, are at their optimal. Yeah. I don't think there's any better place for the Bucks to go. They just swept the Heat. That's amazing. But I see there's a higher level of offense for Kevin Durant. Kyrie Irving can play better throughout the entire series against the Bucks than he did against the Celtics. Harden was still figuring himself out within that Celtics series. If Jeff Green comes back healthy, I just think there's like a higher ceiling for the Nets. I say Nets in 6 because I think they win. I think they win in Milwaukee.
I so want to agree with you, but I'm gonna go 7 just because of some really dumb inner calculus, which is I went clean sweep of Celtics in 4 with a twinge of doubt in the back of my mind about like, is there one game in the Celtics? Is Steve Nash gonna let one stupid Jason Tatum switch onto Kyrie Irving happen 5 times too many in a game and lose one? And I feel like, I hate to say to pin this on just Steve Nash or whatever, but I'm just gonna pin it on lack of experience, cohesion, generally speaking, where I think the Bucks can maybe sneak out that extra one game with just how new everything is on this Nets team. Sure. So for that reason, and also just I basically my inner calculus is what does my heart feel? It's felt like it was in 4, and it's like, let's add 1. Just like add 1, give it a little buffer, because that could be some prejudice talking. So I'm going Nets and 7.
Nets and 8. Say Nets and 8.
Nets and 8. Yeah, I'm going Nets and 8.
Yeah.
Well, Mike,
I'm so excited.
I'm fired up, man.
I'm excited to watch it.
I have, like, even when I'm talking about this, I have like a underlying vein of nervousness that I haven't felt in a long time. It's I was even nervous for this pod just because it was like, I don't know, it's just tense times for Nets fans, Mike.
It's a pulsating vein. It's a real.
Golly.
It's a little. It is a little because it's also kind of scary to think about if the Nets lose this round. Like if everyone's healthy and they still lose in round 2,
I hate that
regardless
so much.
if the Bucks go on to win the championship, it will feel like a failure. And then we enter into this whole off season of like, the Nets too big. Like they bought all their stars and they didn't build a team, and like you just enter in this whole vortex of like negativity. Where if the Nets can beat the Bucks, then the Bucks are going to fire their head coach, and they're going to have to.
There's consequences.
Giannis gets traded to Brooklyn.
There are real consequences involved for both sides here. But, because everyone kind of knows, like, consciously that, like, okay, these are probably the 2 best teams in the league right now, and it just so happens that they're playing in the second round. But like 2 years from now, when we're looking back at this, be like, well, they lost in the second round that first year. I mean, like, well, it was complicated, but like, still, like, that's going to be the footnote, right? It's like it was this crazy, like, bedazzled mercenaries show up together to play,
bedazzled mercenaries
to win chips, and then
they've got those denim jackets with those jewels on them, those damn bedazzled mercenaries.
Yes. I was just thinking about Jennifer Love Hewitt with the bedazzler thing.
I'm always thinking about Jennifer Love Hewitt.
Do you follow this part of her like grift where she had like, I'm not going to get into it. It was a vajazzler. So, anyways, but it's not appropriate for the podcast.
No, it's fine.
It's fine. We're all adults here.
Respect yourself.
respect Jennifer Love Hewitt. Anyways, it will seem more like the PR. If you wanted to distort the PR negatively, that's very easy to do for anyone else in the league who wants to tear us down, Mike. And they're out there. Those agents of chaos are everywhere. So we can't give them the narrative, Mike. We can't do it. We got to win the series. We got to go. We got to do it. Yeah! That's my.
Let's go.
I'm going with a Howard Dean. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good.
Pretty good.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening, Brian. Thank you for being here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Mike. Is that it? We did it, Mike. I'm going to turn off my Audacity.
Stream. I gotta go because I gotta go to the restroom.
Oh, what you're just gonna run right out? You gonna poop your pants, Mike? What's happening here?
I gotta go pee.
You get that bad? You're twisting your chair.
I've had to go for like 20 minutes.
All right, let me talk to chat real quick. You're gonna come back there.
I'll come back.
Yeah. What's up, chat? I saw Austin Liu saying that we should do a countdown for every Giannis free throw. Counting down from 10. I think that's a great idea. Can we get some organizers on something like that? How can we do this? What's up, Rich Wong? What's up, Aaron Fever? What's up, Peter Gorgiev? Philippe Mersois? Ryan Newman? Brian Newman? All the Newmans. What are we talking about, guys? Shoot me some memes. We got Bucks and 6, SETI 15. Who gave you permission? Just going through some old chatties here. Brian hates Claxton confirmed. Greg, you know how I feel about this. You know how I feel about consolidating takes like that. SETI, you did great.
Hey, stream. Sorry.
Greg Eichler, Magnaball in the house. Magnaball, I am eager. I told Mike about our potential to have a new intro, and we're all very excited. So that's all teed up. It's just got to go through. Mike's just got to greenlight it,
Oh, I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah. So that'll be happening. Is anybody going to go to the games? Mike, should we go to some games?
Well, I was looking at the schedule. So they only have 2 games out so far. So just release the schedule.
Yeah. Give me game 5.
Give me so the Nets play a Saturday and then the Monday, right? So let's go to Milwaukee. do a road trip to Milwaukee. Wouldn't that be fun? I mean, it would be. I feel like it's a nice place to go see a game. They're not going to murder you like if you would go to Philly. They would try to kill you.
Yeah. Milwaukee
Eastern Conference semifinals. Should we get tickets? Saturday, Monday.
I mean, when can you? I mean, I know you have a whole new litter of kids to raise.
Yeah. I am going to be in New York.
Get out.
Area. Not this weekend, but the next weekend.
Game 5.
Game 5, right?
Dude,
that'd probably be Sunday. Right?
I mean, you're gonna be here for the whole weekend, yeah? You can't go on Sunday.
No, well, I think I'm leaving that Sunday, but tickets are available, folks. People buy tickets. Everyone should be buying tickets, so we don't have to hear it from Knicks fans about how there's no sellouts.
Ryan Newman asks, "What will Bruce Brown's role be against Milwaukee?" He has.
We didn't talk enough.
We didn't.
About Bruce.
We didn't do Bruce talk.
You know, he's gonna be an interesting figure because when the Nets go small, so there's two ways to go small, right? You have all 3-point shooters around Kevin Durant, which is just mean all 5 are threes, or Bruce is like your operator. He's in the dunker spot. He's the guy picking. Because at one point in the season, the James Harden, Bruce Brown pick and roll was like the most efficient pick and roll in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
The Bruce Brown, James Harden.
People figured that out, unfortunately.
Yeah, he kind of got figured out a little bit in that way, but that's fine. I mean, he's going to be kind of important because he's like a weirdly effective near the basket presence for being a guard. Who can then on the other end of the floor guard like Drew Holiday or something. Greg S. asks, Brian, why do you hate Claxton so much? It's a personal thing.
This is a meme. I mean, this is
a personal thing for Brian.
Yeah.
You hate Mike James, and I now am on your side. When Mike James was coming in on that Celtics game, the last Celtics game, and they're like the Nets were almost about to choke, I was like, let's not bring Mike James in, please, because he's just going to shoot 5 mid-range jumpers in 2 minutes.
Yes, yeah. Let the butt hurt flow through you. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I don't hate. I don't have hate in my heart for anybody. Everybody knows this, and when I'm being critical of someone, like, it's only out of love. Right? It's just because I want what's best for them. You know that, Mike.
I'm looking back at my reaction to you talking about how you have no hate, and I'm doubtful. Brian has a deep, immense pool of hate for many people.
I mean, I'm open to that idea. I haven't thought about it enough, maybe. My son and I went to game 1. We live in Delaware, home of DiVincenzo.
Hey.
Let's just call Delaware DiVincenzo town. DiVincenzoville at this point.
DiVincenzo town.
Yeah. You guys going to game 1, not sold out yet. I actually can't go to game 1. I have to go to a birthday party for friend of the show, previous co-host, who's coming back from Rwanda, where he works for the NBA now and set up a whole African league out in Rwanda.
That's
fun
exciting.
Tip.
Does he have a girlfriend yet?
He does. That's my girlfriend.
That's exciting. That's the only thing I care
She's
about.
lovely. She's great. And it seems like it's going great. Wait, the Nets are...
So Greg asked, what do you all think about Landry Shamet? I think the second unit is going to be the difference for the Nets in the series.
Yeah, we didn't talk about Shamet either, and actually Shamet had a horrific Celtic series.
Yeah, but there's one thing, if I could disagree with friend of the show, John Hollinger, for a sec, he was saying that Shamet is not a good defender and that he will get lit up on that end of the floor. I disagree. He is a better. I mean, we've seen he shut down Devin Booker in that game in Phoenix. Shut him down in that final possession.
What needs to happen though is Shamet needs to miss like 9 straight shots, and then he's like, "Fuck, I got to start doing something here." And then he becomes a good defender. It's not a consistent effort, in my opinion.
Can I tell you who I'm worried about on the Bucks, almost more than anyone? Is Bobby Portis. Like I'm going to be so damn annoyed if Bobby Portis hits,
what about
he goes
PJ Tucker?
5 for 6 from 3. Yeah, so PJ Tucker is interesting because he shouldn't be a factor. He's not any good at basketball anymore, but he's definitely going to be left open at 3 the way the Nets play defense, and he's going to hit 3 of 4. and it's going to feel like the most impactful 3-point shots because the Nets, I can see the possessions. The Nets will try really hard to stop Giannis, Middleton, and Holiday, but they'll leave PJ Tucker wide open from the corner, and it would be a long possession, and the ball goes to PJ Tucker with like 3 seconds left in the shot clock. He puts up a 3 and it goes in. And it's gonna be infuriating.
Yeah.
And hopefully Jeff Green can do that for the. I mean, that's the thing in this series. It can't just be the big 3. It has to be. Like, we're gonna need a big Joe Harris game. The Jeff Green's gonna have to have a strange 20-pointer. Blake is gonna have to have a game where he gets 15. Bruce Brown's gonna have to have that kind of a big game too. So it's like, what role players are gonna pop? The Nets have way more role players who can pop than the Bucks do, though, right? Like, sure, there could be a Bryn Forbes game, I guess.
Sure.
Come on,
Yeah.
Forbes more like I'm more of a Wall Street Journal guy myself. You know what I'm saying?
Nice, Michael. I did watch that one game.
Financial Times,
where
Fast Company. You know what I'm saying?
Great, keep it going.
Bloomberg Business Week.
Wow, Mike, you know some? Are you in business? Do you do business?
I know the rags.
Yeah, all those lefty rags of yours. Yeah, Bryn Forbes could have a game. I mean, he had that one. I watched that one Heat game where he went berserk, and was
he went Brinzerk.
He went berserk and was very pleased with himself, and thought that was going to be the new Bryn Forbes. For a second, you could tell he got it in his head. He was like, "This is happening. I'm changed," and I don't think that's sustainable for Bryn. But yeah, so Bobby Portis, everyone's big horny for Bobby Portis. Greg Eichler's horny for Bobby Portis. They all wanted him on the Nets at one point.
Yeah, so did I. Yeah. He's a pretty amazing 3-point shooter for his hefty size.
He's got the crazy eyes too. I mean, having a little bit of crazy eyed killer on your team is helpful at times.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, if you just look at, but one of my things I was kind of trying to hit on the pod, is that just look at the depth issues for the Bucks from sort of a guard wing position, because they obviously have Giannis and Middleton and Holiday and Brook Lopez, but they're going to have to start either Bryn Forbes or Pat Connaughton. Like Jeff Teague, I think, is still on the team. They're just Rodions Caruso used to be, but no longer is. There just isn't that. They don't have that wing depth, the guard wing depth. And PJ Tucker is going to get a lot of run, and he can only do so much. That's where, like, when it's those units where it's Harden is on the floor as a bench unit with Shamet, Jeff Green, and whoever else. If the Nets are like +8 in those situations in every game, it's gonna be a great situation for them. Like, the math could work out really nicely for the Nets because the Bucks bench shouldn't be able to keep up. Shouldn't.
Austin Lou saying, looking back now, would you have wished that we put our starters back in against Philly when our bench players brought the game back and tried to win that game to get the 1 seed and play the Bucks the next series? How sad are you that we're having to do this in the conference semifinals?
This was the big deal. This is why you wanted the 1 seed this year, because you could play the Wizards, who were a little scary, but obviously showed themselves to not be as scary. And then you get the Hawks. The Hawks are good and talented, but like, the Hawks are a great matchup for the Nets, right? I mean, it's just they have not an ounce of defense that they could throw at the Nets, and the Nets could actually kind of do something with Trae Young. But who knows?
Are you going to be sad to see Rhodey on the bench watching?
I think he's gone, man.
Is he?
I don't think he's on the team anymore.
No, I think he's out there.
I'm almost 100% sure he's no longer on the team. So the Nets should pick him up.
There it is. Is he gone? Does he not? Is he? I feel like I saw him not too long ago. Super benched up. You think he's gone? All right, let's go. Somebody in chat. Oh, Rudy was waived. Damn it. There it is.
Where's my apology? That's all I'm wondering.
The Bucks have formally requested waivers on Rodions. This was May 12th. Okay. Relatively.
What a
recent.
ride for him. I mean, beyond the legal stuff that I don't even know if there's been a resolution on that, where he allegedly assaulted his girlfriend, but his career arc is so crazy where he was like this igniter of change, this catalyst on those Kenny Atkinson teams. And then he just kind of last year he was a mess. And then this year he's probably going back to Europe. Right?
Yeah.
Probably playing basketball in Europe for
what a journey.
10 years.
We should do on the Glue Guys YouTube channel. I was thinking about making some long form videos, just 10-minute and I was thinking about what would be like funny versions of this, and like a history of Rodion's career, things like that, But ultimately I do want to get something that actually gets views. But I was trying to think of trying to workshop what can we do that's like long form Nets sort of history, or I don't know, because I feel like there's somebody I don't know, leaning into this bandwagonness of being good and let's go through what sucked, but I feel like that also nobody's gonna. The SEO for Mil Illich and Boki Nakbar is not going to be super high.
Yeah, what's the I'm trying to think about who. I mean, obviously, if we want an SEO friendly, it's Jeremy Lin. It's the SEO friendliest.
Oh, wow.
Mr. SEO, but who's some obscure net that you would really like to talk about? I mean, there's the guy in the ABA who was remembered as being, I'll look him up.
Well, I was also, one of the other big macro thoughts that I don't have a real clear picture, a thesis for yet, is this whole concept of winning a real ring. This is, basically anytime I really have enjoyed going onto Twitter and seeing James Harden's replies or Kevin Durant's replies, which are insane. It's insane. The
Did you read the New York Times story?
I haven't. I started the first sentence of it, and I was like, I can't read this right now, but I do really want to read it. Is it good?
Yeah, it's great because it's great, and also Durant himself talks about. The writer asks hey, can I see your Twitter DMs just to see what it's like, or the Twitter replies?
Yeah.
And Durant was like, no, but here's what they say. He's either it's people are hey, you're a bitch.
Yeah.
Or it's people KD, I love you. Please respond.
Yeah.
And Durant was saying, essentially, he's but I know they're not they don't really hate me and they don't really love me. They're just the idea of me is the thing they want to interact with. And it was wow, yeah, Kevin Durant's totally figured out as a celebrity what it is actually like to be, because.
But if that were the case, if he had a really healthy relationship with it, he wouldn't gall him out, Smeagol out on these people the way that he does.
Sure.
In my opinion, that's I think it's interesting that he does it. I don't I don't try to moralize it or whatever, but it doesn't suggest to me a person with a super healthy relationship with that particular medium. And it's I think it's funny. Yeah. Anyways, it's a whole separate. I can't know what it's like because we get DMs, but they're not hey, you're a bitch. So it'd be, and I think if somebody did say his DM was hey, you're a bitch, I might be go on, let's go, let's hear about it. I'm interested to know why I'm a bitch, But anyways, going back into so their DMs are obviously horrific, or their Twitter reply threads are horrific, and it synthesizes just the dumbest, loudest voices in the room. But the echoing thing is go win a real championship to all of these guys, and I kind of want to just focus on what how narrow that definition is, how those goalposts move all over the place. Even just I was talking to a Knicks friend of mine, fringe friend, honestly, I'll be honest, and he was our homegrown Knicks team. It's okay, hold up, is Julius Randle, is that suddenly a homegrown talent? What's our definition here? I would grant that yeah, to a certain extent, you do have it's more homegrown, but it's a spectrum. Ultimately, and it's not more homegrown than you draft the guy and then they rise to ascendancy and win championships. The problem is Michael Jordan set this standard of how you win championships, and it's you eat shit from the Detroit Pistons for years, and then or the Celtics or whoever, and then you win championships with the teams that you were drafted by, and that's that's the zenith that everyone's looking for, and it's an impossible standard.
Impossible.
Yeah.
And LeBron loses in the first round, and no one's talking about it enough.
Rich Wong says definitely do not do the long form Jason Williams story. I might actually that's That's what
what Brian knows about true crime pods. That's in fact probably the best story.
Rich, you may have stepped in it. Mike, it sounds like just based on the way you're breathing now and you're fidgeting with your microphone that you would like to go, is what I'm getting the sense.
Yeah, well, I gotta get rolling here. I need you to send me your file.
Yep.
And then
always
I'll go, and I'll put it up and get it out to the people as soon as possible.
Yeah, I'm gonna go too. So that'll be the end of the show. And thanks, guys, so much for hanging out in the chat. I feel like when we do this live, we should do carve out an extra, every time 15 minutes to just hang out with the chat. It's super fun, right?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
this is why we're here for the people.
Yes.
Brian and I don't like doing this show, but we're here for you guys.
That's a lie. We love every part of it. All right, guys. This is one Jason Kidd-esque free throw kiss for each and every one of you. Okay, thanks, guys. We're out of here. Bye.